So today we're tackling a really sensitive topic, almost a historical blind spot. Who were the Moors, actually?
Yeah.
When you hear that word, what image pops into your head? Because what if centuries of evidence pointing to their Africanness have been kind of deliberately pushed aside?
Exactly. Our sources really dig into this, looking at the word itself, historical records.
To see who they were, but also maybe how this truth got so blurred.
That's the goal. This deep dive, it really aims to cut through some common myths, give you a clearer picture based on the evidence.
And the core finding is pretty striking, right? That the term Moor
Goes way back, ancient roots. And it was directly used to describe Black Africans,
Yeah.
which is kind of the opposite of how many see it today.
Okay, so let's unpack that. Where does the misconception start? What's the first thing the sources make clear about Moor?
Well, the big one is that Moor doesn't automatically mean Muslim or Arab or Berber even. That's a common mix-up. The word itself, the etymology, it's pretty clear. Comes from the Greek mavro.
Mavro.
Yeah, mavro. Means black, blackened, charred, like the Black Sea, mavri thalassa.
Okay.
And that became the Latin maruses, singular, maris plural.
Yeah.
And the Romans, they used maruses specifically for Black Africans.
Explicitly.
Explicitly. You even have writers like Procopius mentioning people who were not black-skinned like the Moors.
Yeah.
It draws a clear racial line.
Wow. Okay. And this wasn't just like an ancient Roman thing. It lasted.
Oh yeah, it stuck.
Yeah.
Our sources point to early English-Latin dictionaries.
Yeah.
John Edick, 1783. He defines maruses as Moor, Negro, Ethiops, often specifically Black Moor.
So Negro and Moor were basically interchangeable terms back then.
Pretty much. And it continues. Samuel Johnson's dictionary, 1768. John Ogilvie, 1882. These major references before the 20th century consistently defined Moor as Negro or Blackamoor.
Blackamoor, right.
Even the UK National Archives confirms it. In Britain, Moor often just meant any black person, used interchangeably with Negro for centuries.
So if the history, the language, it's all pointing one way, pretty consistently. Where did this shift happen? When did Moor start meaning something else?
That's where it gets, let's say, complicated and really interesting.
Yeah.
The sources suggest that more recently, there's been a kind of reinterpretation. A deliberate one, some argue.
Deliberate how?
Well, you see revisionists, even, online sources sometimes, redefining more and more to just mean Arab or Muslim or Berber, stripping away that original racial connection.
Which is a complete contrast to centuries of usage.
A stark contrast. The sources frame this as, well, a significant whitewashing of history, ignoring or downplaying the documented Black African identity.
And just to clarify, it doesn't come from Almoravid or anything like that.
No, that's another misconception. The etymology points clearly back to mavro, to blackness.
Okay, that's a really important clarification. So moving beyond the word, what about their actual presence? Where do we see these Black African Moors in European history?
Oh, they were definitely visible and influential. Look at the Roman army.
Okay.
They heavily recruited Moors, known for their skill. You even had a general, Aemilianus.
Right, you mentioned him.
Yeah, described as a Moor by race. He was actually emperor for a short time, 3rd century AD.
Emperor. Wow.
And think about Catholic saints. Saint
Nice,
Maurice.
it's a soldier saint.
Exactly. An Egyptian Christian
Yeah.
from the Theban Legion. His oldest statue, Magdeburg Cathedral, 1281, clearly depicts him as black. Same for others, like St. Victor Maurus, St. Zeno of Verona,
Yeah.
often described as African natives.
So military leaders, saints, what about Iberia, Spain, and Portugal? That's where most people think of the Moors.
Right, the 711 AD invasion.
Yeah.
Huge moment, led by General Tariq ibn Ziyad.
Gibraltar is named after him, right? Gibraltar.
Precisely. And his description, often an Islamized African native. Sources point to his likely origin with the Zenata people, a Berber group often described as black in early sources.
In that period, it wasn't just conquest, was it? There's the idea of an enlightenment.
Absolutely. That phrase, thank heaven for 711, it refers to the knowledge, the science, the culture the Moors brought, which really lit up the region during Europe's darker ages.
And this African identity, it shows up in art and literature too.
Definitely. Connect the dots. The Song of Roland, 12th century, describes Moorish leaders like Marsil and Abisme as black as molten pitch.
Wow, black as molten pitch. That's unambiguous.
Pretty unambiguous. Then you have medieval illustrations. The Cantigas de Santa Maria, late 13th century, shows Moors being baptized, converted. Their distinct appearance is often highlighted.
So visually distinct in these portrayals.
Yes, and not just in Southern Europe. Go north, Central Europe. The freezing Moor.
His coat of arms figure?
Yeah, around 1300 AD. A crowned black figure on coats of arms in Germany, Slovenia. Not just a servant, but a symbol of authority, it seems.
Okay.
There's also a tapestry, Wildman and Moors, 14th century. Shows ruling Moorish figures in Strasbourg. And literature, again, the Dutch Lancelot cycle introduces Sir Morian, described explicitly as all black. And the story even deals with the racism he faces because of it.
So this evidence, it's pretty widespread. Military, religion, art, heraldry. What does this all really mean for how we should see European history, and what happened to these communities?
Well, it certainly challenges a simpler, perhaps more Eurocentric narrative, doesn't it?
Yeah.
As for what happened, we know about the Reconquista, the expulsion of non-Christians from Iberia late 15th century.
Right.
But some Moors converted, stayed, or moved elsewhere in Europe, sometimes joining the nobility. And you see traces in language, in names.
Like what names?
Moor, obviously. Moors. Black. Schwarz, that's just German for black. Morandi, Morese, Negri in Italy. All potential linguistic echoes of African ancestry.
And family crests sometimes.
Some crests literally depict an African head. The Schwarzkopf, black head. It's quite direct.
So summing this up, the core message from these sources is pretty undeniable. The Moors, for centuries, were widely understood, documented, and depicted as predominantly black Africans.
That seems to be the overwhelming conclusion from the historical linguistics and the records examined here.
And the fact that this understanding has been so significantly reinterpreted or obscured later on is, well, it's startling, isn't it? This idea of their Africanness being actively whitewashed.
It definitely raises a critical question, one for you, the listener, to really think about.
Which is?
How does this kind of historical revisionism happen? And, maybe more importantly, what other stories, what other histories might be missing crucial pieces because we tend to accept only the most recent or the most comfortable interpretations?